If this was the only life we would experience and someone asked me to serve God, I would refuse because there's too much pain and suffering here. I would refuse to serve a God with such a lack of respect for the pain and suffering humans endure. But as a statistician and one who recognizes the evidence for the existence of a triune God, an afterlife, and the plan to get us there, I would be disappointed in God if there was not significant suffering in this life. In the world of statistical analysis, we speak of EV, expected value, mean average. God knows that the greatest number of expected souls to reach the afterlife is accomplished in a universe and life such as ours. There must be significant pain to cause enough people to seek for answers, or else too many of us humans who have been given a free will not have the motivation to look. Even now, in the 21st century age of information, it is intriguing to see how God has allowed so many Christians to accept bad doctrine and to promote bigotry. If not for God allowing this, information such as what is shared on this website would be readily available to all. But there must be a struggle that occurs in the lives of people, a struggle with one's selfishness, a humility to question oneself, instances of crisis and pain where humans rise to their greatest levels of character to fight back against calamity or evil. There are important moments of pain that reveal our humanity and cause us to pause and ponder. Virtue has its reward, while base attitudes and behaviors have their consequences. Those attitudes and behaviors can include cynicism and selfishness. In fact, the continuum from selfishness to altruism plays a major role in our ability to yield to a plan. Consequently, in God's economy, a wealthy individual content with life will have a much greater challenge in seeking and yielding to a plan than a poor individual who suffers greatly. And in God's universe, we often see greater true joy in the face of those of humble circumstances, albeit not consistently, than we see in those who are self-indulgent. With regard to pain, how many of us would refuse the 5-second pain of a shot of medicine if it would save our life and give us years of continued health? Not many of us. After all, what is 5 seconds compared to many years? The recognition of an eternal afterlife helps us to put pain in this context. Pain for years here is akin to the pain of a brief shot of medicine, a brief hurt for an eternal reward. Many brutalized here will experience another time-space dimension, a sort of eternity of joy, creativity, and purpose, while the self-indulgent enjoyed a few years of wealth in this life at the expense of misery in the afterlife. It's important to know that God does not single us out, and He does not take lightly the trauma done to some. In fact, it is part of the reason that His plan involved brutality done to Him as a man. Which brings me to another stark reason for pain and suffering. Is there really a hell in addition to a heaven? If there is a loving God, would He really create a hell for some people? The answer to that question is found in this life on earth. Every day, God is willing to allow young children to die miserable deaths, such as death by starvation or disease or acts of terrorism. So yes, He is willing to allow some to suffer in a hell, but it will be that person's choice to do so and not God's. Like I said, if this life were the only life and God sat by and did nothing while children suffered here, I would refuse to serve Him. But what happens to these children who die before reaching an age of accountability? They join God in a new space-time dimension. Let their pain in this life have its value. However, it does challenge us to ask the question, why do we as a species sit by and allow over 20,000 children a day to die of starvation? We are doing better. It was once more than 60,000 per day. Collectively, we need to do more. But we go back to the pain and the suffering. Mathematically, the EV is greatest in this perfectly designed life of pain and joy, euphoria and hurt, beauty and evil. Whether we live a life where we were brutalized by others or where we suffered little but were expected to be our brother's or sister's keeper, there is purpose. There is a plan, no strings attached, just love. Finally, any religious ideology that does not come to grips with God allowing this suffering and being in control of such a brutal universe does not have a message for those who suffer the most. To tell people that once we accept what God did for us, our lives here will be free of traumatic hardship is a grave disservice. How, for example, can we connect with our military personnel who have witnessed horrors and who have been asked to do things they do not want to do? God understands this. God made men in this life this way. So help these men and women to shed guilt and grief and trauma forced upon them culturally. There is a message for life the way it is. It all lines up. It's not pretty. This life is awesome and this life is brutal. But once a person can put the message together in the way that the Apostle Paul and others can, then we start to recognize true joy and peace in the midst of the insanity, as well as in the midst of family and friends and fulfillment. And incidentally, we should take time to enjoy life, celebrate and indulge. We should definitely take and appreciate time for this. We have one lifetime to seek and to find, and then we are judged. Pain and suffering have their purpose, and we realize the words of Jesus are promises if we accept his act and plan. The following was recorded by Matthew, a man who exploited others to make himself rich. Then he had an encounter with Jesus who changed Matthew's heart. Matthew, like Paul, studied the Tanakh and correctly identified the plan of God and the role of the Messiah. It is strangely fitting that Matthew recorded these words of Jesus, given that Matthew had brutalized so many. Because God's plan is through grace and the faith through which we, like Abraham, accept it, there are no strings attached. The motivation of Paul and Matthew to serve is simple: love. Love for God and love and respect for others. It is a sign of those who have a better grasp on the message, because, quite frankly, many religious people today are in the exploitation business without even realizing it. Don't follow blindly. Rise above it. Strive for integrity. Strive to be the way Jesus was and treated people. Here is what Matthew recorded and what Jesus said. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth, the new heaven and the new earth to come in a new space-time dimension. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. There is a joy that persists through any circumstance. May we all discover it.